Howdy everyone, my name is Lucas with Ryze. Today I had the opportunity of interviewing Michael Roderick. Michael is the CEO and co-founder of Small Pawn Enterprises, a consulting company that helps solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs accelerate their business through strategic relationships. Michael is also the co-founder of Access to Anyone podcast, as well as the Connecting Connectors conference. So anyway, today we talk about networking in general, particularly in terms of conferences, different questions you can ask, kind of destroying some of the myths and maybe some misconceptions about networking as well. So there's a lot of great stuff today, and we'll dive right in. Enjoy. I'm curious if you don't mind sharing a little bit more on the Connecting Connectors conference that you guys do.
Sure. So basically, I started ConnectorCon because I went to a bad conference. It was one of those scenarios where it was like everybody was wearing name tags, and when people looked at your name tag, they basically decided like if you were valuable enough to them, right? So they would like ignore you, or they would be rude to you, and a lot of the presentations at the conference were all around sort of ego as opposed to education, right? It was all about like how popular the person was in the front of the room, and are people going to like rush up to them like it's like a concert or something. So I came back from that conference and I was just like, I think that the conference model is broken, and I think that the reason why the conference model is broken is that there's not enough thought put into the like relationship building piece of it. So I came up with this idea to start a conference specifically for connectors to really dig into this idea of like what is best practice in developing relationships, building partnerships, etc. And I made it a point to have it be application only, so that people had to apply and say like why they even wanted to be there, and then also to only accept a certain number of people in a particular business category or particular phase of business, so that it didn't feel like a room full of have-nots, basically sort of cannibalizing one person who was a have who was speaking up front. It was more, there was a lot more of a mix of individuals. And that's really where the idea kind of came from, and the concept. And the last thing is that nobody wore name tags. Basically, there was a directory of people that you got, and it said their name and it said what they needed, but it didn't say what their job title was. So you didn't know who you were walking up to and who you were talking to. You had to actually take the time to find out, as opposed to just sort of evaluate them based on these sort of archaic metrics that most people use to evaluate their relationships.
I like that a lot, actually. And so, and it kind of segues into my question, and I think that you kind of touched on it. But a lot of the times, a relationship can almost be a little bit one-sided, where it's just one person has more value than the other person does.
Sure.
And so, how do you go about these in the conferences, keeping it from being that way? And I think that what you said, like, showing what somebody needs versus a title can kind of do that as well. What are some other things you've seen that kind of helps balance out that kind of misconception?
I mean, I think ultimately it comes down to the organizer's responsibility to create a safe space. I come from an education background. I was a high school English teacher for 8 years.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that you study in education specifically is the idea of making sure that the environment is safe for everybody. So the student who is struggling doesn't feel like a lesser student to the student who's the A student or sort of accomplishing things. So you can bring that same idea of safe space into a venue by basically saying to people at the very beginning that we are going to collectively agree that this is a safe space. So when I did the first ConnectorCon, when I did the opening keynote, I basically said to everybody in the room, you have no concerns about walking up to anybody today. Nobody here will ignore you today if you walk up to them. Nobody here will shun you because I have just sort of declared that this is a safe space. And if anybody does, you need to come to me, and I'm happy to, have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And that I think is something that just it's rare that people take the time to create safe space. There's always sort of this dynamic in most social environments, whether it be you're going to a cocktail party, you're going to a conference, whatever it is. There's always this sort of environment of hierarchy that's presented, and it really breaks down the opportunity to build relationships, because you just never know what people need, and a lot of people sort of they discount themselves immediately and assume that they have nothing of value to offer the other individual.
Yeah. No, that you make a good point there, and that sometimes I know can be difficult. Is really trying to figure out how you can help somebody else, because I had that myself. Is that I'm talking to an individual and I'm just like, I want to help you, but I don't quite know how I could help you. And so maybe the next one is just how have you seen kind of getting to that point, as
Sure.
opposed to just saying how can I help you, because the other person might not know exactly.
Yeah. I'm one of those people, like, I actually hate the idea of the phrase "how can I help you" as an opener. Mainly because I feel like what that does is it instantly puts you in a position where basically I'm saying that you are less than me. Like, if I open the conversation with "how can I help you," I'm basically framing this as I already assume that I can be helpful to you, and I already assume that you have a specific need that you're looking for from me.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very archaic concept that basically, like, people have used for years to talk about in networking, because it's so easy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, most of I refer to these people as nexperts, right? There's lots of people out there who they like try to present themselves as like the networking gurus and the et cetera. And the problem with this idea is relationships are messy. They're not clean. So if you just say to somebody, "Oh, well, the way to solve every relationship building problem is to say, 'How can I help you?'" Well, that's not true. Yeah. And in many cases it's rude, because you're basically saying to somebody, A, you're less than me, and you're saying, B, I want you to do all the work to figure out what it is that you need so that I can, from the top of my mountain of greatness, come down and provide you with something.
Bestow upon you all these gifts that I have.
Exactly. Like I'm this massive oracle, and it's just like, oh, here you go. I'm now going to bestow these pearls of wisdom upon you, and all this other BS. Yeah. So the thing is, my take on it is that you can help anyone if you ask enough questions. Mm-hmm. So it's about listening, and it's about asking questions, and that's how you figure out how to be valuable. Like, you just talk to people about what it is that they're trying to accomplish and what it is that they're trying to do. Yeah. As opposed to, when people do that whole, like, how can I help you, especially when you first meet them, you're like, you don't know me at all. I could be selling babies on the black market. Why are you, like, suggesting that you're, that you want to do things for me, without actually knowing, like, who I am and whether or not we actually vibe? I think it's not a smart way of approaching things. But the thing is, people love that simplicity. People love that idea of, the magic, panacea for everything is to just say to somebody, "How can I help you?" And then all of a sudden you're a networking genius.
Well, it's not that simple, man. What are you talking about? What have I been learning this whole time? No. Yeah. Okay. So is there anything in particular then that you've kind of figured out? I mean, yes, you've seen, just listen, talk to them as another human being. Is there any particular sets of questions that seem to have helped you to kind of get to the core of a person more than just kind of the superficial, Sure. Hey, what are you working on? What are you doing? How's life? How are the kids?
Yeah, I think, one major question is to think about what is the next step for somebody? What are their goals? Okay. And a lot of the time, if you just frame the question in the context of, it sounds like things are going really well. It sounds like you're doing great. I'm just curious, is there anything right now that you're striving for, that you're thinking about in your own life, that maybe is on the horizon for you, that just hasn't happened yet, or something along those lines? And a lot of the time, it's like you start to just kind of create this like little sense of, I'm just curious as to where you're going next.
Yeah.
And people will sort of pull that thread a lot of the time, and they'll start to say, "Oh, well, I'm trying to do this," or "You know what? I'd love to make this happen." And that's where you can find those opportunities to be able to be helpful, because when you're listening to that, it's like, okay, I understand that this is a goal for you. And ultimately, in my personal opinion, it really comes down to two things, right?
Okay.
Every single person basically is in need of people or platforms. Like, you either need other people to help you solve a problem that you have, or you need a platform to be able to accomplish whatever the goal is. Whether that be you want notoriety, so you want to be seen in the media. You want your message to be spread. You want your message to be spread to like a larger organization. So you want to be able to present that message on a larger scale. But ultimately, it just comes down to those two things. And that's what almost everybody will ask you for. They'll ask you for either some way to basically find somebody who can help them, or find something that's going to move the needle, that's going to make more happen.
That makes sense. And it's pretty succinct to the people or platform. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's kind of cool. I like that.
Thanks.
So the next one that I had out of curiosity is that I know, so I just actually come back from an event. It's kind of a startup event here in Austin. And sometimes I personally struggle with that there are just thousands of people that I run into. And I almost don't go talk to people because I will feel guilty not following up with them. And so, because if I go meet 30 people, I know that I'm not going to be able to keep up with it. Like I have one too many other things that are going on. So how do you kind of maybe break that down so that an individual doesn't feel responsible for just going to say hi? They don't feel like there's that social contract of, oh, well, now you're in for it, got to add them on LinkedIn and keep up with everything they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's kind of two ways to think about this. The first is, why do you want to meet 30 people on a sort of small scale rather than having a good conversation with about 5, right? So that's the first thing, is to always sort of ask yourself, like, are you going for quantity just because other people told you that it's a good idea to work a room and to walk away with more business cards than less, right? That's the first thing I think is really important to address. But let's say you really work in the room, you're having a great time, you end up with 30 business cards.
Yeah.
The thing you got to understand is that most of those people who gave you their cards, they gave it as basically an act of reciprocity. You asked them for their card, or they asked you for your card, and you guys exchanged cards together. They don't necessarily have this like desire to see you tomorrow, right? They don't necessarily have something that they want to follow up on necessarily. So when you do your follow up, if your follow up is letting people know, like, I want to set up a meeting with you, then you're going to be completely inundated. But if your follow up is you've got 30 cards, maybe there's 5 people that you know that you really want to set up a meeting with, and the other 25, it's just like you met them and it was cool. There's nothing wrong with basically just sending like an email, and you can use a system to basically like send individualized emails, but it just says something along the lines of, "Great meeting you at this event. Feel free to stay in touch." And then you're putting the onus on them. Like, if they want to come to you and they want to have more of a conversation, they'll let you know. But for the most part, like, they're going to read it and be like, "Oh yeah, that was cool." And they may add you to their LinkedIn, and they may reach out, sometime, at some capacity, but they're falling in the category of like acquaintances, as opposed to people that you're going to do this work with. So it's important for you to not put this pressure on yourself that every single person is actually a relationship that you need to foster and develop as a result of meeting them at an event. Because yes, it will drive you absolutely nuts if you're trying to do that. But if you have something that you just send, you bang out those cards and you're basically like, boom, here's a quick, like, hey, this is who I am. This is, if you need anything, drop me a line. Like, the number of people who don't respond to that stuff is absolutely staggering. If you don't give that idea of I want to meet with you, there are only a handful of people who will come back and be like, oh, but wait, I do want to meet with you, right?
Yeah.
Like, most people are like, thank God all you did was say keep in touch. Like, like, now I don't have to set up a coffee, now I don't have to do a lunch, and all these other things.
That's funny. Okay. No, it's funny you say that, because it's definitely how the feel sometimes is that both parties are like, I hope nothing happens.
Yep, exactly.
But, okay, no, and that actually I think is helpful, because even if you did, even if you said you only had 5, that you'd talk to, and only one of the 5 actually was anything worth it, there's other 4 you can still say that, hey, just keep in touch if you want to, kind of thing. And,
exactly.
And you've done your part,
Yeah.
You've done your part. And you don't feel guilty if they never come back.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, how many of us, we've all been to an event where, like, we've given out our business card and we haven't heard from 90% of the people that we gave our business card to, right? Like, easily, right?
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you're the person who even sends, like, the quickest of, like, hey, it was nice to meet yous, like, you're going to stand out from 90% of the people there who basically just never did anything with those cards. I was a Broadway producer, okay? I was a Broadway producer, and I can't tell you the number of times that I had given writers, actresses, directors my card, and basically said, like, if you can use help, like, just let me know. I'm happy to help you. And, like, so few of them ever took me up on it. Like, they just, like,
Well, okay,
Yeah.
you make a good point, though. You make a good point. Let me ask you this, then, because I've been in a situation where I've had an individual say, like, hey, if I can be of any assistance, let me know. And I know them on a general basis, like you just said, you're a high school teacher, you've put conferences together, you worked in Broadway, so I've got these 3 little spheres of knowledge that I know you have, but outside of that, I wouldn't know of any other way that you might be perfect for, for like, let's say I was throwing a dinner party and I needed a chef or something, you might have the best chef in town in your back pocket, and I would never know that. So I guess how do you kind of keep it such that people are saying, like, hey, reach out, even if you don't know if I can help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just let me know.
Yeah.
I'm going to try, but, sorry, I'm rambling, but you see what I'm getting at.
I totally understand. Ultimately, what it comes down to is you've got to let people know, like, what your expertise is or what your area of support is, right? So my phrase is always, listen, in my field and the work that I do, I meet people from every walk of life.
Yeah.
So if you're ever like, I really need somebody to teach aerial silks at my, cousin's, bar mitzvah, like, feel free to stop, feel free to reach out, and I'll introduce you to a couple of people who've worked, for the circus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and when I throw it out like that, like, there are people who will be like, hey, Mike, I know this is absolutely nuts, but, have you ever met a doctor who has studied the effects of low flush niacin? And it's like, yes. And the thing is, like, I present it in the context of I meet a lot of different types of people, so if there's any gap that you're finding you're having in the network or sort of the community, feel free to reach out. Yeah. And that's my way of doing it, but everybody has their sort of areas of expertise, right? Yeah. So rather than saying, hey, if I can be helpful in any way, feel free to reach out, you can say something more geared towards, like, where you could be helpful. So you can say, listen, I do a ton of work in the startup world, so if I could be helpful and putting you in touch with, other startups, let me know. And then it's clear in the person's mind sort of where that value opportunity is, as opposed to just like, hey, if I can be helpful, let me know, because most people aren't going to think about how you can be helpful.
No, that's good. And that actually, I like that a lot, because that can be something that, I don't want to say the word automate, but is a part of that kind of, hey, keep in touch if you want to. I like to do X, Y, and Z if you need that. And then that is something that makes it very concrete. Okay. No, that's a good one. I like that. I like that a lot. We'll actually have to incorporate that into what we're doing here. So that'll be good.
Nice.
Yeah. I was going to say, the last really question that I had, and I'm curious because I don't want to keep you here too long, but what is something that you do to wow people?
There's lots of different things that have worked really well. One that I think is often just like not used is, I will ask people about who they've always wanted to meet or something they've always wanted to do.
Okay.
And I will keep that information. Because in many cases, I will be at a dinner or I will be at a gathering and I will meet that person, right? So the thing that a lot of us forget about is that everybody's a celebrity to somebody, but celebrity is relative to everybody.
Yes.
So my buddies, who I just like hang out with because we've known each other for X number of years, are somebody else's idols.
Yeah.
Right? So I remember one time I was talking to somebody and they were telling me about how much they loved this particular book by this person. They're like, they're so incredible and all this stuff. And I didn't say anything. And then I was just like, I reached out to the author and I was like, hey, this person is like absolutely obsessed with your book. They loved like every step of it. Would you be willing to, have a chat with them or, have a coffee with them or something?
Yeah.
And they told me, they're like, yeah, sure. So then I sent them this like email and they were like, oh my God, how do you know so-and-so? And it was just a really cool thing. It was, it provided this like nice moment of impact, this nice moment of surprise.
Okay.
I think that's something like, if you want to surprise people, if you want to do that whole sort of like surprise and delight, you want to think about what is something that they really, really want that they have no idea that you could actually do. Like most people, like they assume, they're like, oh, well, you wouldn't know so-and-so. Like you wouldn't be able to help me with, whatever this is. Yeah. And then you come back and you do it and it just kind of like, it blows their mind in so many cases.
I was going to say, I bet you they will never forget that at all.
Yep.
That's hilarious. Oh man. No, I like that, especially because it's a little question that can be used at any given point in time, and even if you don't ever use it, you still kind of get a little bit deeper insight into the person as well.
Yeah. We have a podcast, and that is we call it the golden question on our podcast. Our show is called Access to Anyone, and we always at the end will ask, if you could have access to anyone, if we could sort of magically just put you in front of anybody that you have just really always wanted to meet, who would that person be? And it's always such an interesting thing because people will answer, and in some cases they will be like, "Oh, well, I know that person. I can make it happen." Or "Oh, well, I know somebody who worked for them." Or I know somebody who can help you with that particular process.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of us forget about is that like while we have this sort of like idea of these celebrities, there are all these people who work with these celebrities in these different capacities. And a lot of the time they're open to like making the introduction, they're helping you, or they'll invite you to a dinner where that celebrity is,
Yeah.
Like I have friends in music and I can't tell you the number of times, like, they'll come back and they'll mention some like, Lady Antebellum or something and be like, yeah, we're hanging out, and it's just like, that's awesome. Like I had no idea, or oh, so-and-so is working with, this celebrity, or, like people just drop those lines because they don't necessarily think about the fact that person's a celebrity. They're just like, that's my boss, or that's who I've been working with, or that's who I've done like consulting for, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to, come back to somebody and be like, oh yeah, well, I might be able to put you in touch with them. if you want to, if you really do want to talk to them, and it's fun.
No, that is cool. I like that a lot, actually, and yeah, no, it is cool to be able to do that wow factor, especially when it comes to bringing people together. That's what it's all about, anyway, right?
Yep, totally.
So, then, I mean, any last thoughts before I let you go? I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, no worries. The thing I say in pretty much every interview I do is that the keys to all the doors you need open are in other people's pockets. So you just, like whatever you're trying to accomplish, there are people out there who they can do it faster. They can make a lot of different types of things happen. So it's just up to you to be like, not just sit there and be like, I'm frustrated with whatever the situation is. Just ask yourself, who in my world might have ideas and thoughts as to who can help me, solve this problem, and you'd be amazed at all the opportunities that come from that.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate it. No, thank you.
So, I hope you all enjoyed that video with Michael Roderick, the CEO and founder of Small Pond Enterprises, Access to Anyone podcast, and the Connecting Connectors Conference. If you'd like to learn more about Michael and his company, you can visit smallpondenterprises.com. If you're also wanting to learn more about Ryze, you can visit RyzeApp, RYZEAPP.co, to find out more about the Personal and Professional Relationship Manager, a tool designed to help you follow up with and stay top of mind with all the people in your network, ultimately cutting down on the time of relationship management and unlocking new opportunities. So, thank you again for listening, and tune in next time.